start our questions with Mr. Caputo. Mr. Caputo, go ahead, please. 6 minutes.
Thank you, and I appreciate all of the witnesses being here. Through you, Chair, I direct the following questions to Minister Leblanc. The NSCOP report that was recently released reveals that parliamentarians, including members of our House and the House of Commons, knowingly and deliberately assisted a hostile foreign state to the detriment of the people of Canada. This places a cloud of suspicion over every single member of the House, elected members. Do you know the names of these people?
Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Caputo, thank you for the question. I am updated regularly, and I think in a complete way, by our intelligence agencies, by the RCMP, by the Department of Public Safety. So I am very comfortable that I have the information that I need to do the work that I have to do, but you'll understand that discussing the details, particularly of the most sensitive information, is not something that we want to do publicly.
Well, I'm not asking you to discuss sensitive information. I'm asking whether you know the names. Do you know the names, yes or no?
I know a number of names that were surfaced in various intelligence products that I have seen, but I was not in the room when the Committee of Parliamentarians did their work. I don't have the exact details of which documents they saw and didn't see, but I'm very comfortable that I have access to all of the most important intelligence information, which would include, in some cases, names.
Okay. So people who are alleged, and in some cases, according to our intelligence communities, to have committed some of the most serious offenses known to Canadian law, are you prepared to release those names, yes or no?
No, Mr. Chair.
You will not release the names of members, elected members, operating in the House of Commons. Do you think Canadians have a right to know, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I think it's important for Canadians to understand that these names are contained in intelligence reports. In some cases, it's uncorroborated or unverified intelligence information. I think we would need to be very careful to understand that, as the director himself has said, intelligence is often a series of pieces of a puzzle. One particular piece of the puzzle, an intelligence source or information, may not have a context, may be discredited or altered by subsequent information. So the idea that there's a perfect list of names that is entirely reliable that should be released to the public is simply irresponsible.
Minister, the NSCOP report doesn't equivocate like you just did. The NSCOP report is clear, incredibly clear on names. Do you think Canadians should have the right to know?
Not actually clear on names,
I'm not done my
Mr.
question, Minister. Do you think Canadians have the right to know when they go to cast an X next to the name of somebody in the next 15 months, the very thing that we're dealing with here in Bill C-70, do you think they have the right to know whether their member is under the influence of a hostile foreign state? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I think Canadians know, and I'm confident that they have every reason to be reassured that our intelligence agencies and the RCMP take their responsibilities extraordinarily seriously, have the resources necessary to investigate, and should the RCMP, for example, in their wisdom, decide that charges should be laid in consultation with the appropriate prosecutors, that's our system in a rule of law democracy. It's not simply releasing a series of names or doing, as Mr. Caputo says he's concerned about, casting aspersions himself on everybody by pretending that there's some perfect list of names that the government's not releasing. No other Western democracy knows this, and Mr. Caputo knows that certainly in the government of Mr. Harper, even that kind of conversation wouldn't have been conceivable. So I think there's a certain disingenuous element, Mr. Chair, in Mr. Caputo's theatrics this morning.
Disingenuous element. Under Mr. Harper's government, we did not get a report that said foreign state actors had infiltrated. Under Mr. Harper's government, we did not have reports saying that foreign state actors had dealt with this. Now, under current legislation, you can disclose top secret information when in the public interest. What would be more in the public interest? than a person who could be elected and they are under the thumb of a hostile state actor. You can do that. So when you talk about disingenuous, you can do this. Why won't you before the next election?
Mr. Chair, speaking of disingenuous, in Mr. Harper's government, the National Security Committee of Parliamentarians didn't exist because Mr. Harper's government didn't believe that parliamentarians should have access to this information or be able to review the work of our intelligence agencies. Mr. Harper's government in 2013, CSIS publicly identified an increasing risk of foreign interference in our democratic institutions, and the Harper government did absolutely nothing. So again, Mr. Chair, I think it's important to have a context to these comments.
So you are okay with us going into an election, people putting an X beside a name where they have a cloud of suspicion, every single one of us. Let's face it, Minister, I think if there were six Conservatives on that list and no other Liberals, we would have had the names. Let's be honest here.
Thank you, Mr. Caputo. The
No,
Minister
pardon
may
me,
answer.
I think I have another minute.
No, you don't.
Nope. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
The Minister may answer if you wish.
Mr. Chair, again, Mr. Caputo makes something up. If there were 6 Conservatives and no other political parties, of course we would release the list. Mr. Chair, I'm not going to violate the Security of Information Act and risk prosecution for a political stunt, and I think Mr. Caputo knows better.
We go now to the minute slot. So, Mr. Cooper, if you please, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister LeBlanc, you said moments ago that the House of Commons must be safeguarded from foreign interference. I completely agree with you in that regard, and yet the NSICOP report released this week unequivocally states that elected officials, including certain members of Parliament, are working wittingly, and I emphasize the word wittingly, with hostile foreign states, including frequently communicating with foreign missions, providing foreign diplomatic officials with privileged information, and sending secrets to intelligence officers of foreign states. I would submit that as long as the Prime Minister continues to cover up the names of these compromised MPs, a dark cloud will continue to hang over this place. So I put it to you again, who are the names of these compromised MPs? Who are they? What are the names? What are their names?
Mr. Chair, through you, I'll repeat the answer that I gave to Mr. Cooper's colleague. The release of that sensitive, highly secret intelligence information is governed by law. I think Mr. Cooper knows very well that
Minister, with respect.
Point of
Mr.
order.
Chair, I was trying to answer the question.
Ms. O'Connell on a point of order.
Mr. Chair, perhaps you need to provide a reminder to committee members that questioners must give equal amount of time for the witnesses to answer. And stop with your pretending of reading the book. I know your favorite thing to do on a Friday night is pretend to be chair. But, Mr. Chair, please give a reminder of the decorum around this committee in dealing with witnesses.
Thank you. Well, let's
on the same point of order, Chair.
Mr. Janice on the same point of order.
Yeah, there's no requirement whatsoever for equal time. It's the members' time. That's well established. And whether you read the book on a Friday night or a Saturday night, it will say the same thing on that.
We're getting a debate here. Let us continue. Mr. Cooper, I would appreciate if you give the witnesses a chance to answer the questions you ask. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, well, with respect, Minister, I'm not asking you to release the intelligence. I'm not asking you to release sources and methods. I'm simply asking you to release the names. There is no legal impediment preventing you from doing that, preventing the Prime Minister from doing that. So why is the Prime Minister continuing to cover up the names to shield these MPs who are compromised by hostile foreign states?
Mr. Chair, far from it. The Prime Minister and our government have strengthened Canada's ability to detect and counter foreign interference. We're discussing today landmark legislation that the committee is working on that would strengthen the ability of our intelligence agencies and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to do the important work of holding those that violate Canadian law to account. So, Mr. Chair, again, I have every confidence that
Minister, we already know that one former Liberal MP, the member for Don Valley North, received help from Beijing to secure the Liberal Party nomination, and we know that the Prime Minister was briefed about that during the 2019 election before that member was elected while he was a Liberal candidate, and the Prime Minister did nothing about it and covered it up for nearly 4 years until he got caught when it was reported in the Globe and Mail. The Prime Minister has a disturbing track record of putting the partisan interests of the Liberal Party ahead of transparency and protecting our democracy and national security. Isn't the real reason the Prime Minister won't release the names because some or all of these compromised MPs happen to be Liberals?
Mr. Chair, through you, I congratulate Mr. Cooper on the clip you probably just tried to get for social media. The simple answer is no.
How many compromised MPs are there? Since you won't release the names, how many are there? Just a number.
Again, Mr. Chair, Mr. Cooper knows full well that the information that underlies the conclusions of our intelligence agencies or the RCMP is highly protected, sensitive information that often comes with caveats from foreign partners.
Minister, I asked you simply for a number. How many compromised MPs are there?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Cooper knows very well, and I get the theatrics. He's very good at that. I think he should be perhaps given a gold star for theatrics. But he also knows...
Minister, this is about as serious as it gets, that we have members of Parliament working for hostile foreign states. You won't release the names. At the very least, Canadians deserve to know how many MPs are compromised. How many?
So, again, Mr. Chair, I explained earlier this week, and perhaps if Mr. Cooper is interested, the director of CSIS or others could explain the challenge of taking...
Minister, perhaps we can narrow it down. Are any in Cabinet? Are any sitting around the Cabinet table?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Cooper can pretend to be a prosecutor if he wants. I was...
Pretending to be anything. I'm asking you a very straightforward question as to how many compromised MPs there are, and are any in Cabinet. Just an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. That's your time. The minister may answer if he wishes.
No, Mr. Cooper doesn't seem to be interested in the answer. He's more interested in interrupting, so we'll go to the next question.
Provided an answer.
Thank you. We go now to Ms. O'Connell for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for being here. Minister Leblanc, has the leader of the official opposition, Mr. Poilievre, received his security briefing, or security clearance, sorry?
Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. O'Connell, no, he has not, because we've offered, as I think colleagues know, on a number of occasions to process the appropriate clearance for the leader of the opposition, so he could perhaps see some of this exact information that his colleagues seem so interested in us releasing, but he has not made such a request.
And is the offer to provide him that opportunity for security clearance still available to him?
Of course it is, Ms. O'Connell, and we were very pleased, for example, the leader of the New Democratic Party accepted our offer, and we think that's a collaborative, constructive way to make Parliament, to increase the confidence that Canadians would have in our democratic institutions.
So, Minister LeBlanc, Mr. Cooper just said this is an issue as serious as it gets, yet his leader refuses to receive a security clearance that would actually allow him to have the full information that, frankly, NSICOP members would have. It would allow him to be able to go to Canadians and his own caucus to say, listen, I've reviewed the information, I can't reveal the details. However, I feel confident that some information is uncorroborated. I feel confident that other information is further being pursued by law enforcement, but I feel confident in our democratic institutions. Instead, in, quote, the most serious issue as it gets, according to the Conservatives, they purposefully decide to be ignorant to the issue, instead throwing around fake sanctimonious accusations about numbers of compromised MPs, what that might mean. And, Minister, what this provides in the sanctimony of pure chosen ignorance by the Conservative Party is the fact that it will create mistrust and distrust in our democratic institutions with the ability to be informed. Their very own leader has the ability to be fully informed of what's going on in this serious matter. Instead, choose blind ignorance, which creates mistrust, distrust, and who benefits most from mistrust in our democratic institutions? Foreign states who hope to influence it. And Mr. Minister, it's also, accusations have also been thrown out about influence in the leader of the opposition's own leadership race. However, is it not completely inappropriate to start making accusations about some pieces of intelligence and funny enough, it's actually my time and I can make comments, but funny enough, they leave that accusation out of their comments. Do you find it irresponsible for a leader of the official opposition who hopes to be prime minister one day to be so ignorant and blind to quote such a serious issue, as serious as it gets?
So, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. O'Connell, thank you for the question. And you're absolutely right. If the Leader of the Opposition was serious in understanding the information underlying the NSICOP report, and Ms. O'Connell has served on this committee of parliamentarians herself, so would know this better than I do, but the committee produced two reports. It produced a top-secret report for the Prime Minister and for our intelligence agencies, and it produced a report that was released publicly earlier this week. And the report that was released publicly, of course, was subject to all of the appropriate legislative protections, and Mr. McGuinty has spoken about this publicly. But if the Leader of the Opposition was interested in seeing the highly sensitive information that the Committee of Parliamentarians saw that informed their top-secret version of the report, he would simply have to indicate that he is prepared to receive the appropriate security clearances, and then he would have access to that information. So I think in the way, for example, the Leader of the New Democratic Party can and will. So to us, that is a responsible, thoughtful way in the difficult world of intelligence information that comes with caveats and the need to protect sources and methods. That, to me, is a responsible, thoughtful way to do it. It's not the path the Conservatives have chosen. And I thought your speculation as to some of the reasons, Ms. O'Connell, were absolutely valid.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, the Conservatives would like to pretend that this is somehow a cover-up. However,
don't forget to like, dislike, subscribe, and comment. Safe Space Cafe. And always, have a good